Things just got real interesting. Lance Leipold bringing on a quarterback from Rice in Chase Jenkins.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. Another edition of Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. On today's episode of the show, we are breaking down the latest commit for KU via the transfer portal with Chase Jenkins, adding the quarterback to the room. We weren't sure what was going to happen there. Certainly makes for an interesting addition for KU. So we're going to break down the news. We're going to break down the scouting report, take a real deep dive into what Jenkins brings to the table and how it affects the quarterback room and what it looks like now for KU with the quarterback competition that seems to be wide open in 2026. Let's start right here with the news. Chase Jenkins, a former Rice Owl, is officially a Kansas Jayhawk. Committed to KU on Sunday afternoon. He's originally from Katy, Texas, and spent 3 years at Rice, one as a redshirt, moving between the quarterback and receiver positions. So he's going to be a redshirt junior in 2026 with 2 seasons left to play. And I do view him as somebody who is legitimately going to go into that quarterback competition with Cole Ballard and Isaiah Marshall and have a chance to win it. Now, this becomes a super interesting addition for KU just in terms of like what it means. I mean, we're going to get into his game and, how he fares and those things in a second here. But for one, is it an indication of KU wanting more competition because they're not 100% sold on what they have? Is it that they just want more depth? Is it that they feel like he could be the starter? Like the answer to that question would be interesting. But beyond that, I think in it lies how KU will want to use the quarterback in 2026. And that's maybe what I find most fascinating about this addition, because Jenkins is a former quarterback turned receiver, turned back to quarterback to run Rice's kind of speed option attack this past year. And to bring him on, like if you're planning on running a pocket passing offense, you're making a different type of quarterback addition than Chase Jenkins. So does this kind of tell you? Because what it tells me is that we should expect KU to be running an offense that is running a lot of option, that is running a lot of quarterback run. And we know Isaiah Marshall is good at that. We know, Cole Ballard is a decent runner as well. And so, it is interesting for the quarterback competition. I find it extremely interesting in terms of what it means for almost validating some stuff about what we think about what the offensive scheme and the playbook could be with Andy Kotelnicki back and for KU football in 2026. Let's get into the scouting report, though, on Chase Jenkins next. This episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The College Football Playoff Championship is here on Monday night. FanDuel has given all customers even more ways to get in on the action with every game day during the playoffs. Playoff football, we got the conference championship games coming up. We got the college football playoff. Right now, every playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. You can use it on an over-under or on a spread, on a money line bet, put together a parlay, put together a same-game parlay with some of the player props that you really like. Apply your profit boost to go after even bigger winnings, and when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for football. FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long, so visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day with FanDuel. Thanks for joining us here on Locked On Jayhawks. Don't forget you can join the Everydayer Club to get the ad-free version of Locked On Jayhawks, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. Okay, so who is Chase Jenkins? He's a 6', 191-pound quarterback who was a 83 rated 3-star coming out of high school. Ends up going to Rice, where he appeared in 4 games in 2023. He goes 13 of 19 for 100 yards, 14 carries for 82 yards. Then in 2024, he switches to wide receiver, appears in 2 games, takes a red shirt, and then they get a new coach, they get a new system in 2025. They start to want to be a speed option, spread option team, veer option, just kind of a mix of some different things. And he winds up going back to quarterback there. He throws for 1,025 yards. He has 500 more on the ground, a little over 500 more. He has 14 total touchdowns compared to 2 interceptions. He ends up portaling right before the bowl game, opting out of the bowl game, which did not make the Rice head coach too happy, which are totally understandable there. So that led to a little bit of controversy there, but opted out before the bowl game, enters the portal, and now he winds up at Kansas, right? So I want to divvy this up because there's some interesting stats here. There's some good stats. There's some bad stats. So let's kind of go back and forth on where we're at here. So the good is this. He's fast. He ran an 11.12 in the 100-meter when he was a junior in high school. That's not quite Jason Bean's speed. Bean is freak fast. That Bean was like almost a full second faster. But like Harry Stewart, who was a former running back for you, ran a 10.9. So it's a little slower than one of your running backs, right? But he's super agile too. He's very quick and has good kind of stop start and stunner moves and juke moves and stuff like that. 69.2% completion rate in 2025. That actually ranked 13th in the country. So that would lead to some accuracy. Now, where those throws are coming from makes this a little different of a completion percentage. We'll get to that in a moment. Just 2 interceptions. That's a good number to have. Somebody who's not putting the ball in harm's way. He had just a 1.4% turnover worthy throw rate. That tied 4th nationally for quarterbacks with 100+ dropbacks. So one of the best things about him, he's going to take care of the football. And the PFF grade is actually pretty decent here, 67.8, 68.7 in pass grade. Like both those are fine. His big time throw rate of 4.5%. That's 9th of 16 American athletic quarterbacks with 100 or more dropbacks. That's 72nd nationally. So both of those are kind of average. And that can be fine, right? And then he's actually better on play action, 7.5 yards per attempt on play action, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions. That maybe gives me a little bit of hope that maybe there can be even more there, especially with how much KU likes to use play action and some of these different motions and unique ways to attack a defense. As far as the bad, I mentioned a 69.2% completion rate, which ranked 13th in the country. That's very good. But once you start looking at how that came about, it's not a totally true number, because if you're just throwing screens all the time, you're going to boost your completion percentage, but it's not like a real throw over the middle in terms of, what you're doing with it. If you take out screen passes, it's just a 56% completion rate, which is not very good. So you go from being very good in completion rate to being not very good in completion rate. Now you look at a lot of option offenses, and for the most part, most of the passes are going to be deep passes. It's like, hey, we're going to hit them with the option, and then when they suck up against the run too much, we're going to hit them with a deep ball. Rice did a combination of that and the screen passes. So, a little tough to tell totally based on the scheme, but that is something to keep note of. Only 6.0 yards per attempt passing, albeit up to 6.9 on non-screens, but either way, those are not very good numbers. Like, it kind of depends where you look, because different sites have different qualifications for, are you qualified for this stat or not, based on the number of, throws or dropbacks or games played or whatever it is. But basically, no matter where you look, 6 yards per attempt is outside the top 100 nationally, or, by other qualifications, outside the top 150 nationally in yards per attempt. That is not a good number. 6.48 air yards per attempt. That is a low number as well, but that goes back to a lot of the screens being thrown, right? Like 57 of 172 of his throws were screen passes. So like 1 out of every 3 of his throws were screen passes. Like Jalen Daniels in air yards per attempt was at 8.3, almost 2 more yards per attempt. And that was even with Jalen, as the season kind of went on, losing confidence and throwing short a little bit more. 9 passing touchdowns compared to 13 sacks. I like to see more passing touchdowns than sacks. That's kind of something in general. And obviously the offensive line plays into that too, but sacks can be a quarterback stat too. And I found this interesting. He had a 17.8% pressures turned into sacks. So you would think, okay, very mobile guy, fast guy, he's going to be good at avoiding sacks. That wasn't actually the case. 13th of the 16 American athletic quarterbacks with 100+ dropbacks in pressures turned into sacks. So it actually was on the lower end of things. He did play against a Big 12 opponent, and it did not go well. He was 10 of 12 against Houston, but he threw for just 50 yards on 12 attempts. That's just 4 yards per attempt with an interception. He did have a rushing touchdown with 33 rushing yards, but just a 16.6 total QBR. And overall, speaking of total QBR, it was just a 34. That ranks 121st nationally. That's not great. You might be wondering, what does QBR calculate? It takes into account your stats. It takes into account your opponent. It takes into account what you're doing. Like if you have a 3rd and 10 and you make an 8-yard completion, in theory, your stats are going to look okay. You're 1 for 1 for 8 yards. Like, that's not a bad stat line. But the QBR is going to ding you for it because an 8-yard pickup on 3rd and 10 doesn't move the chains. It doesn't get done what you're trying to get done. So that's not great to see there. 0.13 EPA per drop back. That's another kind of advanced metric we're looking at there. That wasn't qualified in terms of the amount of plays and stuff there, but it would have ranked 92nd nationally for quarterbacks. The 37% success rate, also not qualified, but would have ranked 123rd. So we're going through a lot of stats there that don't necessarily jump out to you. Now, again, if we try to add the context here of saying he's going to go into a good offensive scheme with Andy Kotelnicki and Matt Lubick and stuff like that, and obviously you're running in an offense at Rice that, is more of a speed option, is not going to be the most diverse passing attack. But the thing that weirds me out is when you look at the passing number, a lot of times like option teams, like for instance, Navy's quarterback averages 9.9 yards per attempt. Because a lot of times the option teams, the quarterbacks aren't completing a high percentage of their passes. It's mostly runs and then deep throws to take advantage of that. So that's what's weird about this is it's an option game, but it's a low yard per attempt total with a high completion percentage. So it's very different, right? Now, one other thing I wanted to make mention of was a comparison to what Jason Bean put up at North Texas before coming over to Kansas, right? I think North Texas at the time was in the Conference USA. And obviously this is in the American, which is a little bit tougher of a league, but Jenkins actually better completion percentage with the 69% compared to being at 55%. But if you do go off the non-screen numbers, then it becomes pretty equal in the completion percentage. Jenkins was at 6 yards per attempt. Bean at North Texas was at 7.8. It's better numbers there for Bean. Jenkins with 14 total touchdowns. Bean had 19 in his final year at North Texas, but that was in just 8 games, so it becomes even more impressive. And this is a big difference here. Jenkins had a 34 QBR at Rice. Bean had a 64 QBR at North Texas. Now, one thing I did find kind of similar in watching some of the highlights and stuff on these, I thought he threw a very catchable deep ball that was a high arcing pass that led to, some flags, led to pass interferences, led to his guys being able to make deep ball catches, which is something I thought that Jason Bean always did very well for KU. So where does he sit potentially in the quarterback battle, and what does this mean for the quarterback room? We'll get to that next. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out problems, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. That's turbotax.com/local. Again, don't forget you can join the Everydayer Club here on Locked On Jayhawks. You can find that link in the show notes or lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer to get access to our Locked On Discord as well as get ad-free Locked On Jayhawks. All right, this leads to a QB room now that features 4 scholarship guys. Mikey Pauley is a walk-on. We'll see if he's a tight end or quarterback because he kind of did some moving around. But beyond that, the 4 scholarship guys, Jalen Mason comes in as a true freshman. And then you got Isaiah Marshall back as a redshirt sophomore. You got Cole Ballard as a redshirt junior. And now you enter on another redshirt junior with Chase Jenkins. I do think it is a real competition between those 3 guys. I mean, who knows? If Jalen Mason comes in and kills it, it's hard for a true freshman, right? But I do think it's open from those 3 guys. Now, I think most KU fans are wanting it to be Isaiah Marshall. And I would just say this, no hat in the ring here. If I'm guessing this is not what I'm saying what I would do. This is not what I'm saying what I would do. This is what I'm saying that if I'm trying to predict what I think Lance Leipold is going to do, it would not shock me if Cole Ballard was the guy. Now, again, we got spring ball in front of us, a lock and change. That's just and it goes back to the idea that I always think about them caring about seniority and the consistency in practice. And I think back to Hayden Hatcher starting over Austin Booker. And I'm watching Austin Booker play in a playoff game for the Chicago Bears. And Hayden Hatcher started over him because he had seniority and he had been in the program more. And maybe he was a little more consistent in what he needed to do every day in practice. But Austin Booker was the much better player. No disservice to Hayden Hatcher. Austin Booker is a very good player. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. That's just me reading the tea leaves on the situation. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But point being, if Jenkins ends up being the starter, I think there's certain things here that I can point to and say, okay, that's good. That's not so great, but maybe we can look at the context of the situation you were in and explain it a little bit away more. And Kansas has done well developing quarterbacks, but that first year of Jason Bean was a little more up and down than what we remember the last couple of years of Jason Bean. So I would feel a little more worried if Isaiah Marshall is what we all want Isaiah Marshall to be, he should be able to beat Cole Ballard and Chase Jenkins and be the starting quarterback. And that's kind of how I view this, right? And for a KU team that obviously does want to run the quarterback more this year and might, veer into more option stuff this year, having another quarterback for depth in case of injury that you might need to run the offense 40 times. I mean, Andy Kotelnicki was just at Penn State where the quarterback was out for the year. You got to put value on having backup quarterbacks if you're going to run them. And I think this was a smart move for KU to do at the end of the portal season. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. Check out our Dylan Edwards commitment video, all of our other commitment videos, and we'll have another portal episode coming out on Monday right here on LOJ.